Welcome to Shadowed Tales Archive. Tonight's story is titled, The Signal Beneath. Let the shadows speak. Part 1. The Job Offer. I was 3 weeks late on rent when the message came. It was from someone I hadn't heard from in years, Caleb Strickland. Back in college, he'd been one of those guys who always talked big. Indie horror films, urban documentaries, disturbing realism, whatever earned him attention. Last I heard, he dropped out and vanished into some online rumor mill. Now he was texting me like nothing had changed. Hey man, got a job. Paying. You in. No context. No signature. Just a location pinned near the Ohio-Michigan border and a date. 3 days from now. At first, I thought it was a prank. But that name, I remembered Caleb's senior project. A short film on poverty in Flint that was so raw it made people leave the room. He wasn't subtle. He liked suffering up close. And apparently, he still did. I was broke, tired, and dumb enough to say yes. The town was called Bellbrook. You won't find it on any modern map. It used to be a manufacturing hub, or so the rusted street signs suggested. Now, it was a skeleton of town, the kind of place where trees grew through roofs and rats owned the sidewalks. Caleb met me at the old train station. His beard was thicker, his eyes sunken. But his smile? Just like college, charming and full of shit. You made it, he said, offering a cigarette I didn't take. Still don't smoke, huh? That's fine. You'll want your lungs. He laughed like that meant something. The crew was already there. A sound guy named Theo, too quiet for someone with his name. A girl with a drone kit, Shay, ex-military, eyes sharp enough to slice you in half. And then there was Mason. Mason didn't have a job title. He didn't say much. He just sat by the van, staring at the woods beyond the lot like they owed him something. Caleb clapped his hands. All right, this is the team. We're here to shoot a docuseries, post-America. Abandoned places, real stories, no bullshit. I nodded, expecting interviews with locals or footage of empty factories. But then he said, Bellbrook's special. No one's lived here since '96. But people still hear things. Radios picking up voices. Static that talks back. It's not just urban decay. It's residual. He grinned. That's what we're after. I should have walked then. Should have taken the train back and chalked it up to desperation. But instead, I followed him into the van and we drove past the rusted welcome sign where someone had spray painted. The signal waits. Part 2. Static echoes. Bellbrook didn't smell like a place anymore. It smelled like metal and mold. Old wires. Damp paper. Forgotten time. We drove past rows of dead houses with busted windows and collapsed porches. Some still had toys on the lawns, faded plastic dinosaurs, and discolored tricycles, like the kids just disappeared mid-play. Population used to be 8,000, Caleb said from the front seat, like he was reading a ghost story. Now, just echoes. We stopped outside a building that had once been a high school. The gym had collapsed, but the front entrance remained intact. Black scorch marks stained the bricks above the doors. Theo muttered, fire? Caleb shrugged. That's the rumor. But no report. No bodies. No cause. Mason cracked the van door and stepped out first. Still didn't say a word. Inside, the school was worse than I expected. Desks were overturned. Chalkboards still bore faint words like be safe and locked down. One room had dozens of papers still scattered on the floor, all marked with the same sentence. We heard them through the walls. No one said anything. No one had to. Caleb began setting up gear like this was all routine. He brought out wireless mics, backup batteries, EMF readers. I shot him a look. Since when do you use ghost hunting gear? He just grinned. Since people started whispering about Channel 05. I blinked. What's that? You'll see. We spent the night in an old motel on the edge of town. The kind of place where every room smells like mildew and cigarette ghosts. No working electricity. Shay powered the security lights with a generator she kept humming all night. I barely slept. Something about that school unsettled me in a way I couldn't name. Not fear, more like pressure, like the walls were pushing back. At 3:17 a.m., I heard something through the vent above my bed. A voice. Faint, broken, but undeniably human. It sounded like it was reading names. Amira, Jacob, Lucian, Caleb. I bolted upright. The last one hadn't been a coincidence. I pressed my ear to the vent and waited. All I heard next was static, but even that felt wrong, like it was breathing. The next morning, I told Caleb. He didn't look surprised. "See," he said, sipping instant coffee. "Residual. What the hell is channel 05? He led me back to the van and pulled out an old CRT television rigged with a portable VCR and a custom-built receiver. He popped in a tape labeled 5A. The screen crackled to life. There was no intro, no credits, just a jump cut to footage of a hallway, probably from a school just like the one we visited. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead. The camera panned slowly, then stopped at a locker. Something knocked from inside. 3 slow thuds, then silence. Then, as the tape began to warp, a voice whispered, "You're not watching this. This is watching you." I hit the eject button, heart racing. Where the hell did that come from? Caleb shrugged. It aired once. Analog glitch, early 90s. No record, but I've been collecting tapes. The signal still bleeds in if you tune just right. Some say it's a pirate frequency. Others say it's older. He leaned in close. People in Bellbrook called it the 5th channel. No one who watches it stays the same. That night, Mason vanished. Shay noticed first. He was gone from his cot, gear untouched, shoes still by the door. We fanned out with flashlights, calling his name through the empty lots and alleyways. Then Theo found his camera. It was placed carefully in the center of a crosswalk. Turned off, battery drained. I reviewed the footage. The last minute was all we had. Mason walking alone, street lights flickering behind him. He stops, turns as if hearing something. Then, on the edge of frame, static begins to creep in, not on the screen, but in the actual air around him. Like fog that glitches. Like digital snow, but alive. A shape moves inside the haze. It doesn't run. It doesn't leap. It just steps forward. Slowly. Deliberately. Like it already knows you won't escape. Mason drops the camera. End of footage. I looked up from the screen, my hands ice cold. "We're leaving," I said. But Caleb just smiled and pointed to the static on the TV. "No," he said. "We finally found it." Part 3. Channel 5A. We didn't talk about Mason after that. No one wanted to admit it, but we all felt the same thing. He wasn't coming back. Not because he'd run, not because he got lost. He'd been taken, and we all knew exactly what had taken him, even if we never said it out loud. Caleb doubled down. If anything, he got more excited. "This is real," he whispered, almost reverently, pacing the motel lot like a priest preaching to ghosts. "Not just decay or poverty porn. This is transmission-based. It's not a haunting, it's a signal. Something buried beneath this place, broadcasting." Shay looked ready to hit him. That thing got Mason, Caleb, but he didn't flinch, and we documented. That word again. He kept using it like it absolved him. Document. As if filming horror made you less complicit in it. The next location was a church, or what was left of one. It stood crooked at the end of a street that had collapsed into sinkholes, its steeple bent like a snapped neck. The windows were shattered, the wood black with mildew and burn marks. But inside there was something worse. The altar was covered in melted TVs, old box sets fused together into a pulsing, tar-black mass. Power cords coiled like veins. and every few minutes, one screen would flicker to life, showing what looked like footage of us. Footage from the previous night. Theo puked in the corner. "I didn't bring any feeds," he said. "None. Not even backups. This isn't synced to our drives." Shay muttered. "Then where the hell is it coming from?" We backed out slowly, none of us wanting to turn our backs on the thing. That night, Theo locked himself in his room and wouldn't speak. He scribbled something on a napkin and shoved it under my door. "It's reading us. I saw my dream on the screen last night. Word for word, scene for scene. That channel isn't broadcasting. It's recording. It's absorbing." I stared at those lines for an hour. What scared me most wasn't the message. It was that I believed him. I woke up at 4:03 a.m. to the motel TV turning on by itself. We hadn't connected them to power. Static hissed softly in the dark room. I tried to look away, but my eyes locked, like something was pulling my focus through the screen. The static twisted, reshaped, pixels shifted like muscle memory. Then an image surfaced. It was my apartment back home. My tiny couch. My coat hanging on the wall. Except, I wasn't alone. Something stood in the hallway behind the kitchen. A shape I couldn't focus on. Like a person made of bad signal. It just stood there, vibrating faintly, watching. Then the screen cut to black. "It's almost ready," said a voice behind me. I spun around. No one. The TV powered off on its own. We regrouped that morning. Theo was gone. Left everything behind. Wallet, keys, even his laptop. No tracks. No struggle. Just vanished. 2 out of 5 gone. Shay finally snapped. She grabbed her drone pack and said, "I'm out. Screw your project, Caleb. You're not a documentarian. You're a parasite." She walked down the overgrown road, disappearing into the early fog. We never saw her again. Caleb didn't stop her. He just turned to me and said, "Now it's just us, the lens and the story." I didn't respond, not because I agreed, but because something inside me had cracked. Later that evening, Caleb took me to the basement of a post office. Used to be a fallout shelter, he said. Locals called it the listening room. The air down there was thick, not humid, charged, like breathing through a wet radio signal. At the center of the room was a single chair facing an old television screen bolted to the wall. The kind of setup you'd expect in some MK Ultra experiment. Wires coiled around the floor like eels. "Sit," he said. I didn't. He pulled out a small, portable reel labeled CH-58 Bellbrook cut and loaded it into a boxy player. "You've seen pieces. This is the whole thing. No skips. No edits." Then he smiled. "And it only plays when someone watches willingly." I wish I had said no, but I sat down, and the screen came alive. Part 4. The Bellbrook cut. The reel clicked. The screen went black. Then, slowly, white text faded into view. CH-5A Bellbrook cut. Do not view alone. Do not view twice. A tone played, low, hollow, like it had been recorded underwater. My teeth ached just hearing it. My fingertips twitched. Then came the footage. It began with static. Then, shapes emerged, flickering silhouettes of people inside a school hallway. Their faces were blurred, not by censorship, but as if the camera couldn't understand them. Each time one turned toward the lens, their features smeared into shadow and code. The hallway changed subtly with every cut. First it was clean, then a light flickered, then the walls darkened, then something crawled along the ceiling, backwards. It wasn't a jump scare. It was worse. It lingered. I started feeling things I couldn't explain, a cold pressure behind my ears, a vibration in my spine, and a voice, not from the screen, but from the corners of the room, behind me, beneath me. "You're not watching this. This is watching you." I tried to stand. My legs wouldn't listen. The screen shifted again. Now it showed a house. My house. Not just the outside, inside. My bedroom. My desk. The calendar with appointments I hadn't yet made. The bed unmade just as I'd left it. Then the hallway. Then me. I was asleep. Or at least the version of me on screen was. Tossing. Turning. A shape stood beside the bed. No features. Just static where a face should be. It leaned closer and whispered something I couldn't hear, but somehow remembered. The cut changed again. Now, fire. Buildings burned in slow motion. A church steeple crumbled. The air pulsed with distortion. Amid the flames, I saw someone walking. Caleb, but older. His beard was white, eyes hollow, skin pale and blistered. He looked directly at me through the screen and said, I tried to show them, but always comes back. The fifth channel is not a place. It's a permission. Then the screen went black again, and my reflection stared back at me in the glass. But it wasn't my reflection. It blinked when I didn't. It smiled when I didn't. I ripped the reel out of the machine and stumbled back, breath ragged. Caleb was standing in the doorway, waiting. You saw it, he said. I nodded, shaking. What the hell is that thing? He looked almost sad. It's truth, or what truth looks like after it's been passed through grief and electricity. He walked past me and ran his hand along the wall. The town isn't haunted. It's infected. The fifth channel is inside it. Inside us. I backed toward the stairs. You're sick. No, he said softly. I'm tuned in. I locked my motel door that night. I pushed furniture against it. Sat with my back to the wall, camera in hand, phone at 10% battery, screen dimmed low. At 2:03 a.m., the TV powered on again, unplugged, untouched. But this time it didn't show footage. It showed a live feed of me in the room. Right then, I waved my hand slowly. The version of me on screen moved half a second later. A delay, not a reflection, a surveillance. Then the me on screen turned and looked toward the camera, except I hadn't moved. It raised its hand and wrote a single word in blood on the lens. Stay. I blacked out after that. When I woke up, the screen was off. Caleb was gone. All that remained was a VHS copy of the Bellbrook cut on my nightstand and a note scribbled in permanent marker on the mirror. It only ends when you share it. Part 5, Out of Phase. I don't remember checking out of the motel. I don't remember driving. All I know is I woke up in the van, parked at the edge of Bellbrook's industrial sector. Factories long dead, windows boarded like sealed coffins. The VHS tape sat on the passenger seat beside me. The word stay still echoed in my skull like a siren embedded in my bones. I didn't call anyone, didn't text. It was like the thought of reaching out had been erased. Or worse, replaced. The factories felt different. Not just old or decayed, hollowed. Like the buildings had been chewed through by time itself. Graffiti twisted into symbols I didn't recognize. Circles around eye-shaped glyphs. Antennas crossed like bones. Inside one building, I found Caleb's camera. It was still recording. The footage showed him walking alone through the dark, talking to himself, or it was something else. Every place has a signal. Some get AM, some get FM. Bellbrook gets something deeper. The human frequency. Then he pointed the camera directly at his own face. The fifth channel doesn't send messages. It replaces them. He smiled, and then he began peeling the skin from his own forehead. The footage glitched, then showed nothing but static, then something moving inside that static. Something tall. I dropped the camera. I heard a sound behind me, like bones being stirred in soup. I turned. There was nothing there, but the air shimmered, and when I looked down, my shadow wasn't mine anymore. It was taller, broader, and it moved when I didn't. Back in the van, I locked the doors and turned on the overhead light. My hands were shaking. My teeth chattered, but it wasn't cold. I looked in a rearview mirror and nearly screamed. My eyes weren't my eyes. They flickered, just for a second, like a weak signal cutting in. Then, normal again. But it was enough. I had seen it. I was becoming part of the feed. Later that night, I received a message. Not a text, not an email, a broadcast. It came through the van's dead radio. Full static until a voice broke through like it had to crawl through rust and blood to reach me. You're watching the 5th channel. Thank you for surrendering your shape. I turned the radio off. It turned itself back on. The windshield fogged over from the inside. Words appeared in the condensation. Transmission requires witness. I stared, frozen. And then I heard my own voice on the radio. If you're hearing this, I already recorded you. The next morning, the roads out of Bellbrook were gone. I'm not exaggerating. They were gone. Every path I tried led me back to the same intersection, like the town had twisted itself into a knot. Street signs repeated. Even the trees looked copied and pasted. At some point, I passed the same half-crushed soda can 5 times. Bellbrook had closed itself, not like a trap, like a womb, and I was gestating inside it. I returned to the post office. The basement was empty now. No chair, no screen, but on the walls, new writing, scratched into the plaster with fingernails or maybe teeth. The feed continues even when you look away. Memory is a broadcast. Your mind is the antenna, and beneath it, etched in red, no one leaves tuned. That night I dreamed in static. I saw my father's voice, yes, voice, not face, melted in a tape hiss. I saw my childhood home swallowed by glitch. I saw myself sitting in a theater, watching my own life on film. And behind me, rows and rows of watchers, all faceless, all flickering, all whispering. Share the signal. Share the signal. Share the signal. When I woke, I wasn't alone. There was a man crouched in the corner of the van. I say man, but I don't think that's what he was. His body jittered every few seconds, like a skipped frame. No clear face, just a blur of motion, like he'd been badly compressed. Like reality couldn't load him properly. He reached forward and pressed his hand against my forehead. No pain, just a sudden, bone-deep clarity. The 5th channel is memory. The 5th channel is choice. And you already made yours. Then he vanished. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just started the engine. The road appeared in front of me. I didn't question it. I drove. Because Bellbrook wasn't a place anymore. It was a transmission. And I was the new tower. Part 6. The broadcast follows. I drove west until the gas light came on. Then I drove another 10 miles. No radio. No phone signal. No music. Only the low hum of tires on asphalt and a faint ringing in my ears, like an old CRT warming up. Eventually I reach a rest stop. Generic. Too clean. One of those stations that looks like it was generated by an AI fed a million images of normality. The cashier didn't look up when I walked in. Didn't blink when I paid for gas and a bottle of water. His eyes were open, sure, but static. I mean that literally. When I looked closer, I saw tiny lines of scan distortion rolling across his pupils. I said nothing, and he said, "Next in line." Even though I was alone, I filled up and got back on the road. My GPS flickered, then rebooted. The map redrew itself, faster than I could blink, until all roads were gone. Just one word burned onto the screen. Returning. I threw the device out the window. It didn't matter. I could already feel Bellbrook in the rear view. Not as a place, as a direction inside me. When I got home, everything looked the same. My apartment, my mail, even the mug I left in the sink. But nothing felt real. The light was too flat. The air didn't move right, and I couldn't find my reflection. Not at first. I walked past the hallway mirror and noticed it was blank. No dust, no fingerprints, but no me. Then I stepped back. There I was, but delayed, just like the motel TV. I raised my hand. The reflection followed, half a second late. Then it smiled wider than I ever could. I blinked, back to normal, but I didn't look again for the rest of the day. At night, I tried to sleep, but my dreams didn't belong to me anymore. They came in segments, like episodes. Each one began with that same whispered phrase. You were watching the 5th channel. The first dream showed a mother screaming in a burning room. The second showed a city crumbling into pixels and ash. The third showed me, sitting at a desk, typing this very sentence, over and over and over. I woke up drenched in sweat, only to find the phrase "stay tuned" scrawled in black marker on my ceiling. I didn't write it. I don't own a black marker. I tried to go to work the next morning, try to step back into something like normalcy. But the people I passed on the sidewalk, all flickering, all glitching. I saw mouths moving out of sync with voices, bodies jittering forward like bad gifs. One woman turned her head and her eyes just stayed behind, floating for a beat before snapping into place. Then someone pointed at me, a teenager, maybe 15. He just said, "You're the guy from the tape." I didn't ask which tape. I ran. Back home, I checked my laptop. My email was full of messages I hadn't sent. Subject: the feed expands. From: no address. Body: welcome transmitter. They're watching. I checked my drive. Dozens of video files I'd never recorded. Each one named after a different city. 01_Chicago.avi. 02_Portland.mov. 03_Sao Paulo.mkv. 04_Tokyo_final2.mp4. 05_Los Angeles_feedlock.mp4. I clicked one at random. It showed a person sleeping in a subway tunnel. Rats ran across his chest. Then, just as the frame zoomed in, the figure sat up, stared directly into the camera, and said in my voice, "Don't pretend you're just watching." I unplugged the laptop, burned it, but I could still see the files in my mind. Sometimes they played behind my eyelids when I blinked too long. Sometimes I hear a countdown in the space between thoughts. I try to call someone, anyone, but every contact in my phone was replaced with the same name. Channel 5A. I answered one just to see. All I heard was my voice, looped and reversed. Then, screaming. Then, static. Then, breathing. Too close. Like it was inside the phone. I don't go outside anymore. Not because I'm scared, but because I'm seen too easily now. People recognize me. Not as me, but as a signal. And when they do, they change. They blink slower. They talk in delayed cadence. They begin to transmit too. There's a camera in my apartment now. I didn't buy it, didn't install it, but it's there. Just a little red light glowing above the microwave. I've tried covering it. Doesn't work. The red light just shows up somewhere else. In the faucet, in the mirror, inside my eye when I close it long enough. The signal doesn't need wires. It uses memory. It uses thought. It uses me. Part 7. The tuning room. It was a Wednesday. At least I think it was. The calendar on my wall kept shifting. One day said April. The next said November. Then it switched to symbols I didn't recognize. Radio icons, waveform glyphs, static blocks like old test patterns. Still, something pulled me outside that day. Not curiosity, recognition, like someone else had called me. I ended up at an empty laundromat on the edge of town. I'd never seen it before. It didn't show up on Google Maps. No name, no hours posted, just a flickering neon sign above the door that read, "Tune in." Inside, there were no washers, just rows of mismatched chairs facing a wall of CRT televisions, 12 of them, stacked like a surveillance room from some Cold War experiment. Each screen played something different. A man crying in a white room. A hospital hallway with no doors. A time-lapse of a corpse decomposing in reverse. A woman laughing with her mouth full of wires. But they all had the same watermark in the corner. CH5A. I wasn't alone. Others sat in the chairs. 7 of them. All silent. All staring. One turned to look at me. His eyes were blank, pupils gone, static dancing where vision should be. But he spoke clearly. "Welcome to the tuning room. You've seen the feed. Now it sees you back." I didn't answer. I couldn't. Another woman, middle-aged, dressed like a librarian, reached over and handed me a sheet of paper. A list, with only one line highlighted in red. "When you see yourself, do not look away." The man continued. "Each of us has broadcast something. Each of us has been seen, consumed, processed. But now, the feed wants shape, a spine, a face, a voice." He looked up at the monitors. "It chose us. Now we either give it form, or we get overwritten." They brought me to the back room. A single chair, a single TV, and a console labeled Record, Transmit, Erase. I asked, "What is this?" The librarian answered, "It's where we confess. It feeds on memory, but it worships narrative. You've seen the arc. Now you must complete it." I hesitated. "Why me?" The man smiled. "Because you didn't stop watching." I sat. They gave me a mic. The TV lit up, and I began to speak. I told it about Bellbrook, about Caleb, about the tape, about Mason, Theo, Shay, about the dreams, the reflections, the delay, the red dot, the man in the corner. I spoke for hours. When I finished, the screen showed my face, but not my current face. The other one, the version that smiles when I don't, that looks back a half second late, that still watches from glass when I walk away. And then it nodded. Just once. The librarian leaned close. "You're stable now," she whispered. "For now." I turned to her. "What does that mean?" She didn't answer. She just handed me a new VHS tape. No label, no instructions, just a sticky note on top. "Play this at the place where you first broke." So I drove. I didn't think, didn't eat, didn't sleep. I just drove until the world started looking familiar again. Until I found myself back at the old train station near Bellbrook. Only this time, the welcome sign didn't say the signal waits. It just said, "You never left." The town was different now. Cleaner, more intact. Buildings stood whole. Lights worked. People moved in the distance. Families, children, old men playing cards outside gas stations. But none of them looked at me. None of them blinked. Their motions were too smooth, too clean, like rendered loops, like memory fragments on a closed circuit. I was inside the archive now, and the broadcast had built itself a world. I reached the high school by dusk. No burn marks, no collapse, just silence. I walked the same halls, the same corners, and in one classroom, I found an old TV card, same one from the real player. I inserted the new tape. It clicked, the screen crackled, and I saw something I wasn't ready for. Myself, not just on camera, but behind it, filming, smiling, feeding lines to someone just off screen. I turned up the volume. Good. Keep it raw. Don't let him see the cut yet. Let him live it. The voice was mine, but not quite. Too confident, too rehearsed, like someone had cast a better version of me. I stumbled back. The lights in the room flickered. Then the version of me on screen turned and looked through the camera into me and said, "The channel isn't just watching anymore. It's producing." Part 8. Final broadcast. The image of myself on the screen didn't blink, didn't stutter, didn't glitch. It was perfect, too perfect, like someone fed every memory I had into a deep learning program and asked it to create a better version of me. Smoother, louder, more confident, less afraid. He smiled and leaned toward the camera. "You think you're real because you remember pain. But memory is just signal, data with echo. We echo better than you." I reached for the TV. The screen went black. The room began to vibrate, not with sound, but with history. I could feel it humming under the floorboards, behind the drywall, inside my own skull. The past wasn't behind me anymore. It was around me, rapping, repeating, rewriting. The walls turned to static, and from it stepped him, the other me. Same face, same height, but eyes filled with light, not metaphorical. Literal light, like twin CRT beams glowing from inside his skull. He circled me, examining, assessing. Then he spoke, not in voice, in tone, like a transmission beamed directly into my nervous system. The feed requires identity. You are noise. I'm a clean version. Only one of us may persist. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it felt like the last thing left that belonged to me. I don't want to persist, I said. I want to forget. He tilted his head, as if confused. Then you surrender? No, I whispered. I rewrite. I lunged at him, and as I made contact, I didn't feel skin. I felt film. Thin, fragile, warm with static. We crashed through the classroom wall, not into the hallway, but into footage of the hallway. Colors washed out, frame jittering, looping textures. The lockers repeated every 6 feet like a bad render. This was where the channel lived. Inside simulation, inside memory, inside format. And now I was inside it too. We fought in silence. No punches landed, only edits. I'd swing, and he'd cut the frame, reversing time by a few seconds, resetting my position. He'd move forward, and I'd glitch him with contradiction, memories he didn't own, pain he never earned. It wasn't combat, it was narrative conflict, and the winner would be whichever story stayed more coherent. Then I remembered something Caleb said, long ago, back before the real collapse. The channel doesn't know what it is. It needs someone to tell it. So I stopped fighting, and I started speaking. I looked the copy in the face and said, "You're just a best guess, a compression artifact. You don't know who you are, because you've never had to choose. I have. I chose to film. I chose to stay. I chose to remember. I chose to speak. And now, I choose to end this." The channel shuddered. The color drained from the false hallway. The duplicate cracked like glass under heat. And for the first time, he looked afraid. "You can't erase me," he whispered. I stepped forward. "No, but I can turn you off." I reached out and pressed 2 fingers to his temple, where the red glow still flickered, and whispered, in transmission, "Darkness." I woke up in a hospital bed, white walls, buzzing fluorescent light, and for my arm and a nurse who didn't look like static. I asked the date. They told me it had been 3 months since someone found me collapsed on the side of a highway near Bellbrook. No ID, no memory, just a tape clutched in my hand. They gave me the tape. It had no label, but I knew what was on it. I never watched it again. I never let anyone else touch it. I burned it in the woods behind my apartment the night I got discharged. But still, some nights the static returns. On the bathroom mirror, on the microwave screen, inside my dreams. It hums at a frequency just beneath language. And sometimes, it speaks. You are watching the 5th channel. Epilogue. This story isn't for warning. It's not for closure. It's a transmission, and you've already tuned in. So now I leave you with just one question. What have you broadcast without knowing? And just one instruction. If the screen flickers, don't look away.
And that was tonight's tale from the Shadowed Tales archive. If it left a mark on your mind, if the silence feels heavier now, then the story did what it was meant to do. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the darkness. New stories are always on their way. Until then, keep the lights low and the doors locked.